So here we are on the live pitches again, and the guys, I think, are just about ready to start pitch 4. Now we've had 3 quite exciting pitches so far. One wonders what pitch 4 is going to hold for them.
Well, on the inspection of the climb, this pitch is slightly easier. It's an E6 6B pitch, which takes it into still the realms of very, very high level extreme rock climbing. And most climbers in Britain who are climbing at a very high level would only but aspire to lead E6. I think I've only done a couple of them
that way, yeah.
on trad gear. So very hard, but it's in a remarkable position, an absolutely remarkable position. They're still being protected from the weather by the big overhangs that lie above them. However, we're now getting to a position where we're edging closer and closer and closer to the top of the cliff. And although the rock above on this pitch seems dry, there's a danger that now the rain from the top of the cliff is seeping into the cracks. And there's some crack climbing on the top of this pitch. If there's any worry at all about this being completed, it will be that the rain is slowly oozing into those cracks, which, you know, wet hands are slippery.
Yeah.
Well, they look happy enough.
So, Tim, can you hear me? Any earpiece with the climbers?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Just talk me through the last little traverse on pitch 3. It looked kind of spacey between the last gear and that exposed little traverse.
Well, Duncan, after you've done a lot of the climbing to get there, you're a little bit tired. And although the angle of the rock is less steep than before, it's still overhanging and the holes get really small. And the key thing about that is there's just no footholds. There's nothing to put your feet on, so you've got all your weight on your fingertips and you're trying to pull your body weight up on without many footholds really. So exciting moments on board. And of course, if either of us had fallen off then, we would have gone for a pretty big swing, especially Dave. So yeah, glad to be at the third belay.
Yeah, you did a good job, man. That was a big pitch. Well done.
So there was a moment about a third of the way up that where you had to change a pre-thought or pre-arranged sequence where you kind of had to drop your right hand back down and do a short pop or a wee dino for a big move. How close to you falling off were you there?
I just got it. Yeah, it was a bit of a pop. I think momentum helped me there, but I think it was all right. The thing is, I've only been up here once, a couple of days ago, inspecting it to see what it's like, so I don't really have a sequence for much of the climbing. It's very much make it up as you go along. But I'm really, really glad to be on the third belay. Yeah. Got 2 more pitches to go. This one's pretty punchy. It's pretty steep. I reckon Dave's got he's got talons on the end of his hands. So
I'm gonna need them, man.
He's gonna be all right.
I mean, that second pitch, I really used a lot of energy there.
Okay, Dave. We're looking forward to see those talons in action. So when you're ready.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I shall get going. Right. Here we go.
Good luck, guys.
Right.
We had those interviews with Edie Stark, Duncan, and they just go to show how different in character these 2 guys are. So different, you know. This Tim's so effervescent, if you like, and Dave so kind of focused and so committed, a lot quieter. Very different types of people, and yet both highly accomplished climbers.
I think one thing that you shouldn't underestimate is how, you know, Tim's kind of personal and media persona seems very kind of outward, very gregarious, full of energy all the time. He's a, you know, behind all of that, he's an extremely practiced, rehearsed guy. It's not all about adrenaline and you know, being extreme. To do any of these sports at a high level, you have to bring to it a level of control and planning. And both these guys have that. They find that control in different ways. Dave tries to keep himself in a zone of control, as you know, throughout his professional climbing career. It comes to his writing, his blogging, his lectures are the same. Tim comes from a place of, where it's all looks outwardly scattered all over the place, but he can bring that energy into very, very fine and sharp focus when it's required. And both guys demonstrate a great deal of skill in controlling the mental side of the sport. And at this level, it's totally key. There's lots of strong climbers who just cannot turn the key and make the brain work so that they can do this sort of stuff.
Well, they've set up now the opening moves of pitch 4. Almost climbed out of sight here, and it doesn't get any easier.
So there's a little roof here. Dave's arranging gear at the back of the corner. They are now getting very aware that they are becoming more and more tired, so this is where they have to really concentrate on their technique. Technique and efficiency, absolute key to the success now.
This looks like a rather complicated bit of terrain now. Lots of blocks, lots of corners.
And some of these are loose. There's hardly anybody been here before. And although when Dave inspected the route, a few loose blocks did come off, it's a huge, huge, vast area of rock, and it's not possible to take a wire brush down, and as you would do in a smaller crag, you would wire brush some of the holes, get rid of the moss and the lichen. That would be a 3-week cleaning job. Nobody has that kind of time or strength to do that, especially with the weather the way it's been in the islands for the last few weeks. It's not been great. You just see a few drops of rain lying on the pole cam. So as we get to the top of the crag, the wind and rain will blow into the rock, and that could well be something that they'll have to contend with slightly damp conditions higher up.
It's good to remember, I think, that this Louisian gneiss is the oldest rock in the world. So if you consider the age, the heritage of these rocks, you realise that nothing lasts forever, and at some point these rocks are going to come down. Let's hope it's not today.
Well, this stuff is, am I right in saying it's about 3 billion years old? It's been there a long, long, long time. Created obviously by a glacier moving out of the valley, and then once the pressure of the melting ice came away from that, the cliff was unsupported and then fell away along all of these fracture lines, and these fracture lines are full of crystals and features and cracks. And the crag is formed by weakness in the structure, but it's been like that for a long, long time.
There is a mountain in South Harris called Ron, and it's said that the rock on the top of that particular hill are the same as the rock and the mountains of the moon. So when we talk about a moonscape here, we're actually talking quite correctly.
Well, it depends if you put the wire in on the left-hand side, Dave.
Oh yeah, right, okay, got you.
Dave's looking very relaxed, I have to say.
So he's just rearranging the rope so it's not crossed over there.
Did you get the green in as well?
Yeah, a bit higher.
A bit higher, right.
Yeah, about a foot above.
Sorry, the flash isn't going off, so they can't see us.
So one of the things here that they will have done, both the climbers have inspected the route from the top down and from the bottom up, and they will remember an enormous number of these gear placements and the handholds. But over 150 meters of climbing, there will probably be up to 600 individual moves to remember and then repeat in a perfect sequence. So it's a great deal of, there's motor memory here, there's instinctual climbing, but a lot of it is being committed to memory over a few days exposure to this project.
Do you want to pull this little silver one up?
There's a promising sign, Duncan. Bit of blue sky.
First bit of the day.
Yeah. We've had the pleasure this afternoon of watching some of the finest climbing we have ever seen. Two world-class climbers climbing at the very top of their game, And Duncan, it's been quite sensational.
Yeah, I think what we've been witnessing throughout the day are some of the most incredible climbing performances I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think there are 5 pitches on this route. It's 600 foot long. It overhangs 150 feet. So if you drop a stone from the top of the crag, it lands 150 feet out from the base. It is a great piece of luck, actually, that the climbing is so steep, because it's been raining on and off here all day.
Yeah.
But the climb, as you can see, the rain's absolutely tipping down at the moment. But the climb is so steep that it's not actually touching the rock. And here we are with Dave. This is the start of the 4th
And
pitch.
it's like flat hold.
In climbing terms, that's E6 6B, which is very close to the top end of free traditional climbing in the UK. We've had pitches of E7 and E8 or E9 below, but it's not over yet. We're just watching Dave here on a big block just above the belay at the end of the 3rd pitch, just getting himself psyched and ready to go for this. And you can see bringing these pictures to you are in a very dedicated group of climbing cameramen, mountain guides and riggers who have set all of this up for us. And really truly extraordinary pictures we've had during the day. But now Dave is setting up this pitch.
Thanks, man.
And there's a slight concern that the weather will maybe hold us back or create interesting conditions on the top of the route, Cameron.
Yeah, we've been very, very fortunate so far, although it's been very wet, as Duncan mentioned, down here in our commentary position up on the mountain, because it is such a natural umbrella, as Dave MacLeod himself has described it, that they're pretty well sheltered. The rock's dry, but at the top of the route there are some quite deep fissures, and there is a worry that the rain that's been falling will just seep down through those fissures and come onto the crag itself. So the end of the route, the 5th pitch, which really should be relatively easy, the last pitch of the day, could be very, very difficult indeed. The crux of the route was away back in on pitch 2. And there maybe was a feeling that after that, things would get a little bit easier, but they didn't appear to. And certainly on pitch 3 that the guys have just climbed, it looked very, very impressive.
All right, Dave. Go on. Go on. Just round the corner. Go on, Dave. Really good hole round the left. Yeah, nice. Go on, Dave. Go on. All right, nice.
Put that on yellow.
Yeah. Nice. How you feeling?
Whoa, cool, man. That's so exposed. Woo. Probably shouldn't be messing about. I'm totally pumped, but I just couldn't. It's just like such a great position. Okay, climbing.
Okay. Go on, mate.
That's a bit better. That was really scary. I was just hanging on the holder. I could feel it moving. Not ideal. Okay, I'm in a better position now.
Nice.
I'm just going to organise some gear.
Okay.
Here's Dave MacLeod. He's just negotiated the first part of the fourth
So
pitch.
I feel okay, but I'm quite tired.
Kind of easy climbing
Okay.
through some steep ground, but the climbers have now been at this for 4.5 hours, and the strain's beginning to tell on the muscles. Also, mentally, it's a very, very challenging, intimidating position to be in, Cameron.
It certainly is. I mean, that shot that we saw just a moment ago just shows the scale of this
Black
crag.
on green.
And
Okay.
although it's much more vertical than overhanging just at this point, look at that. You see the scale of this thing. The guys, as Duncan said, are getting tired. They're running a bit short of fuel. They know they've still got a long way to go. They know the weather conditions are going to get, likely to get more tricky the higher they go. So there's a lot on their plate still.
You can see the angle of the climbing camera ropes. They're pulled in from steep ground above. So that diagonal, if they were to let that out, would hang a good few meters out. So it doesn't look that steep, but it's still very, very, very overhanging. And the issue now is
what a
efficiency
position.
of movement.
Cool.
Just brilliant.
Yeah, let's just watch Dave climb this next section.
Yeah, it's dry here, and I can see up to the final bulges about 30 feet from the top,
Yeah.
and it is dry up to that.
Oh, brilliant. Nice.
I don't know what's going on at the very end, but
When there are not many places anywhere in the world that you could climb on dry rock in these conditions, it's just a testament to how impressively
another wee
steep and
second on
overhanging
here
this
and then I'll
cliff
move
is.
off.
No worries.
From a distance, this Louisian gneiss rock looks extremely compact, but on some of these closer shots, you can actually see some of the little cracks and fissures that certainly help the climbers.
Yeah, this style of climbing is called trad, or traditional climbing, and the idea is that you do not hammer in pieces of protection. You don't actually pull on them with your hands or stand on them with your feet. It's free climbing,
Okay, climbing, Tim.
and
Right, Dave.
you use your hands and feet to make progress, and you're only using the
Go for
protection
it.
to stop you hitting the ground if there's a mistake, and to facilitate a comfortable mental state as you climb up the rock. So it doesn't look too bad so far. Nice deep crack. And Dave, just going for a set of hand jams and locks here, where basically the rock doesn't give you any flat hold to pull on, but you stuff your hand into the crack, and by pressurizing your thumb underneath your palm, you create a wedge with your skin. And in America, you can find climbs that are hundreds of feet high just using that one technique. But here on the gneiss, you really need to have a full complement of all the climbing skills.
Dave just putting in another bit of protection in
Okay.
that crack, from a little camming device, tie the rope through it, and then he has a little bit of protection for the next move.
So you can see Tim on the belay ledge. Tim's job here is to feed the rope through, so that there's not too much slack, so if there is a fall, Dave won't go too far. But also as a support mechanism, there's lots of encouragement been going on throughout the day. These climbers have been talking to each other. They've been encouraging each other
How's
through
it
the
going,
difficult
Dave?
moves.
I'm a bit pumped actually.
Keep going, man. There's good holds up there.
Yes, he's chalking his fingers, as you can see, just to give him that little bit extra adhesion on the rock, just as a gymnast would do. And I think the big enemy now is fatigue.
Yeah, it's both physical and mental. They've done some very hard, difficult, exposed climbing.
Okay.
Exposed, I mean that they're climbing a long way above their gear in quite punishing conditions. And it does begin to tell. It fries the synapses over a long period of time. So mental tiredness and physical tiredness beginning to play here. They've got quite a considerable way to go.
Bit late, I think.
This is quite interesting, where Dave has really to reach for a hold that's quite high. He didn't quite make it that time. He's going to have another go at it.
You know, at this time of the day when they've been climbing a long time, it's quite often very difficult to
Come on.
push into the
Go
commitment.
on, Dave.
You can
Only
see
a
it's
few
steep,
moves.
hanging there for a long time, sapping your strength, sapping your strength. He's got a long reach
Watch this
to
time.
make.
I'm watching ya. Go on.
Reach up. Come on, Dave.
Go on.
Oh, yes.
That was very marginal indeed.
Yes.
You could just see the trembling in the fingertips there.
Whew.
So that's, I think, one of the hardest moves on that pitch. It just shows. I mean, that off the ground, that for Dave would be a piece of cake. It would be a very easy move, but they've now been climbing for a very, very long time. It's beginning to work and really work the bodies.
Yellow.
Got it.
Just clip in the rope again. Get that little bit of protection. Shake the hands, get some chalk on.
It's all too easy on a long, long climb like
Okay,
this,
watch this.
especially
I'm
in
watching ya. Go on, mate.
a slightly easier pitch, to just make a slip, move a little bit too quickly, don't get it quite right.
Go
There's
on.
quite a big roof at the top of these cracks coming up that has to be negotiated, so all the time he'll be
Good hold, thank God. Brilliant.
trying to keep some power in his arms.
Oh man.
How far are you from the belay, Dave?
I'm almost there.
Remember that hold on the right-hand side.
I'm past it, man. I'm past
Oh,
it.
brilliant, brilliant.
It means a lot to these climbers to get to the top of this thing.
Okay,
It's been
gonna move on to the belay
18
ledge.
months or more in gestation.
Awesome.
And weeks and weeks and weeks of searching for a climbable line through the overhangs on this huge, huge cliff. Dave has spent hours and hours and hours abseiling down the cliff, looking for a way through, trying to find sequences of holds that led to linked pitches, and it's a remarkable effort to get to this stage.
There was you could feel the sense of frustration in Dave's blog just a number of weeks ago, when he'd been out here so many times in all kinds of weather conditions, but he couldn't seem to find a route through it all. And when he eventually did find that route, there was a sort of sense of euphoria.
I'm on the belay ledge, man.
Well done.
Yes.
Well done, Dave.
So another pitch knocked off. And we really are beginning to, I mean, I can feel the excitement myself. We've been witnessing some extraordinary climbing, and as they get closer and closer to the top, it's going to be hard for them to keep it under control. There's some pretty delicate, difficult climbing to go. Tim will second this pitch, taking out all the gear as he goes up. Still smiling there.
It's quite interesting that you can almost sense
Blue
the
sky,
change
that's
in
what we
conditions. Earlier on there wasn't much sound of the wind, but up here you can hear the wind in the cameras. You can hear the just sense the difference. They're getting they've done the fourth pitch. Tim has to come up, and then they've done that fifth pitch where there is the danger of a bit of grease, a bit of wet, and that could be very, very tricky. And here's a replay of that particular move that Dave was making. It's quite impressive. He's going for it. Yeah.
Well, that's hard to catch. I mean, it's the hold is only 3 fingers wide, and he moved again with his left hand. There's a pop. Very easy to mess that up.
Yeah, still impressive climbing. It's so. I don't think I've ever seen climbing of the standard, ever. And that's on a route this size. I mean, Duncan, you know that nowadays the guys do such gymnastic things on boulders, but we're kind of looking at that sort of quality of climbing high up in a mountain crag.
I think it's an extraordinary part of the way that the sport's developed over the last 15 to 20 years, where the first climbing walls in the UK were built in the late 80s. There were first climbing competitions in the late 80s, and people suddenly found that it was a sport that had a great deal of athleticism attached to it, and they started training. We built indoor climbing walls in our bedrooms and in our garages, and then they started becoming kind of opened commercially, and there was a great deal of interest around high standard sport climbing at the time, but nobody really thought at that time that would benefit traditional British climbing in the way it has done. Everybody thought, oh, climbing walls are the death of rock climbing. And then there was the bouldering craze, where people were climbing short rocks, maybe only 4 or 5 meters high above crash mats, and there the emphasis was on pure technical difficulty. So, and there was a whole another generation lost in the craze for bouldering, and it's still going on now. But you can see where all of that has led to: increased strength, fantastic professionalism on the rock, and it's come full circle. It's really become very, very, very
nice
complete.
One! Awesome. You're off, belay!
Okay, so we now have Tim. He has stacked the lead climbing ropes over his knees. You would never want to have them blow out in the air and get tangled up in the cliff below. His job now is to feed those ropes out to Dave, who will take them up, recoil them at the end of this pitch, and then Dave's job is to attach them to a special belay device and then bring Tim up. So it's a pitch by pitch process, and it's essentially a leapfrogging process for the climber, going from the bottom of the cliff into the middle and then going on. So Dave's now just setting himself up with the belay stance, and in a couple of minutes he'll be able to bring Tim up, who will then lead through and be at the sharp end of the rope for the top pitch. So you can see him just pulling the rope up, stacking it on a ledge, making sure that it's
Hang on, Dave!
coiled
Okay.
one loop on top of the next.
Okay!
Tim just preparing himself now. When that rope goes taut, he'll unclip himself from
hang
the
on.
crag and take the protection out. And
All right, Dave,
start
go
climbing.
on!
So you can see it's still cold. The climbers have been in the wind all day, and Tim's wearing gloves on the belay to keep his hands nice and
Hey,
warm.
mate, watch your camera. Dave, Paul.
So
Thanks.
is Tim just conversing with one of the cameramen?
And let's just remember our climbing cameramen this afternoon. They've been hanging about there for about 5.5 hours now. It is pretty cold up there, and to hang about in that sort of position for that length of time is really quite remarkable. It's a real feat of endurance in itself.
It is, and having done the job myself, I know that sore legs and stiff muscles are a
Hang
thing that you
on.
do get when you're doing this.
Okay!
So Stephen, you have been to the highest point, the summit of the world, climbed Everest without oxygen. A pretty amazing achievement. Tell me if there's any comparison at all between that kind of long expedition and obviously it comes within the big umbrella of mountaineering and climbing. What do you see here, and explain how those sports are linked?
Very, very different. But I suppose the only similarity is we did a new route up Mount Everest, and there was that thrill of seeing a picture, a story unfold, and discovering the secrets of the mountain. And in that way, there is perhaps a similarity here. This is a new route, it's a new creation, and we've seen it unfold before us, and that's tremendously exciting. In terms of technically what's actually happening, we were climbing in big boots with spikes on our feet. A lot of it was on snow and ice. The very hardest move we would have done in 10,000 feet of climbing would not have registered on a climb.
You mean
like
just
this.
lifting one foot in front of the other?
Yes, and we had hard moves, but nothing to compare with this technicality, this virtuosity. It's a completely different game, but it's a beautiful game to watch. And what links them, I suppose, is that this is a mountain climb. It's not on a boulder. It's on a huge mountain crag, and we're in the wilderness, and there's that same sense of engagement with the wilderness. And that's what excites me about what Dave does, is that he's doing what we call traditional climbing, but at the very, very highest standard in this big mountain environment.
And by traditional you mean that you are cleaning, you're leaving no trace of your impact on the cliff as you go up. So you place the protection. The protection is designed to be removed by the second climber. So essentially when you come to try and repeat something like this, there's nothing but a written description in a Scottish Mountaineering Club journal.
Yes, and that's what's so wonderful, because you have to find the holes, you have to find the protection. You are a master of your own destiny, and I think that's something very precious. It's aesthetically very beautiful, but also it requires boldness. It requires that old-fashioned virtues of courage, and my goodness, they've displayed courage on this climb and commitment, which is very inspiring.
They certainly have. I think with reference to the clean climbing ethic, I've spent a lot of the last few years climbing on sport routes in France and in Spain and America, and there's a great attraction just purely to go to a cliff and enjoy the movement without the real thrill of being exposed, so you can concentrate on the high standard movement and so on. But it's a rare commodity, clean climbing, traditional climbing, where you leave no trace. It's something that we should really, really value, and it was kind of lost sight of a few years ago, but people like Dave and Tim have really brought it back into the fore again, and it's become the overriding ethic in British climbing, and so it should be.
Yes, I was talking earlier this week to Doug Scott, who, with his Nottingham friends, was the first to climb up through this immense overhang in the late 60s. And then they were doing artificial climbing. They were actually hanging on things. But they made a point of drilling no holes. I think they had to place one drilled bolt, which had been made in the workshop of the school where Doug used to teach in Nottingham. And I really admire that, just using
weight on your curve.
What the rock provides, and not drilling your way out of difficulty. And here they're doing the same thing, but also they're free climbing, which is utterly remarkable.
So by free climbing you mean using features on the rock to make progress and nothing artificial. And
yes.
The ropes and the gears are there obviously to stop you falling to an early demise, but they're there for protection and safety. And having said that, the level of the climb today is, we think it'll probably be E9, which is only 1.5 grades away from the absolute limit, and it really is an extraordinary achievement. There are very, very few climbs, if any, of that grade anywhere in the world, so it's really, really an impressive performance. And you can see Tim using a nut tool or a nut proddler to take out this piece of gear which was jammed in the belay. And climbers do make a big effort to get their gear out. Not only is it expensive, but you don't want to leave it lying around to help other people coming behind you. So there's kind of an ethical battle going on there as well.
Just to put those numbers in perspective, when I first started climbing nearly 40 years ago, the hardest climbs were graded extreme, and the extremes got harder and harder, and the sort of routes I get up are about E1, maybe E2 on a good day. They've been climbing E9, and I think Dave's done an E11, possibly harder. in his life.
There's one route in Dave's little bag of tricks which on Ben Nevis, which he's refused or hasn't given a grade to because he doesn't. I mean, I've no idea. I think it's one of those climbs that, if it's repeated, will be an amazing achievement. But yeah, this is one tick off the top standard. But it's very, very, very unusual to have so many hard pitches stacked one on top of the other. So this is no mean feat, and it's been an extraordinary thing to see this unfold in front of our eyes throughout the day.
Yes, Duncan, you climb closer to this level than I do, but how important is it that conserving of not just physical strength, but also the sort of mental strength to sustain that boldness through pitch after pitch of this overhanging terrain?
Well, there's no doubt about it that climbing above a piece of protection and making hard moves with the potential of falling into space or falling and hitting something, it takes its toll. It frays the nerves, and over a number of hours, you become more and more and more aware that if you make a slip, you're going to fall into space. I think the real skill on a long climb like this is to enjoy the exposure, is to really enjoy the experience. If you found yourself there hating it, it would block your movement. You wouldn't move so freely. And to climb at this standard, you need to be able to have a set of psychologies or mental mechanisms just to switch off from the pressure and really enjoy the fluidity and the movement of the climbing. After all, ultimately, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. I mean, even at my level, that's the joy of climbing, when you do feel you can slightly relax and enjoy this situation, delight in this huge amount of space beneath your feet, and just being in these outrageous positions.
I think when we come to a wide shot, you'll just see how incredible the cliff is and where they are on it. It's huge, absolutely huge.
Oof.
And we're seeing a tiny portion of the crag.
Cool.
You can see the ropes going out from where Tim is now, right through this roof. So Tim's
in mid-bottom frame at the moment, in his red jacket and orange helmet. And as we pull out, we can see, unfortunately, some wet streaks running down from the grass patches sitting on top of the crag. We hope that is not going to cause a problem on the next pitch 5. We can.
Over on the right there, you can see the dampness starting to ooze down.
Climbing valley.
Just hope it doesn't get too much
Come on,
onto
Tim.
that
You mean
route.
the absolute
Give us a shout when you're climbing.
suddenness of the territory. And the camera is covered in rain as well.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty awful day, and it's an extraordinary thing that the cliff has allowed us to climb in relatively dry conditions. The climbers have been dry all day. The climbing cameramen, apart from the very last one on the top of the rock, have pretty much remained dry, and the gear's all worked. Not many places in the world that you could find a venue or an amphitheatre like this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we were mentioning Doug Scott, who came here in the 60s and 70s, famous Everest climber, and he actually said the other day, we were looking for the biggest overhang we could find, the biggest leaning lump of rock in the British Isles.
But would you said, Stephen, that in those days they would have regarded aid climbing, basically hammering in stuff and standing on it, as a step to the greater ranges, the Alps and the Himalayas?
So Tim is now, he's just coming up to the crux, the hardest section of
Go
the
on,
fourth
Tim, go
pitch,
for it. Watching you.
and he's now got to commit to just climbing right out through this roof of rock. He's secured by the ropes above him, but if he comes off, he's still going to swing right out into space.
Go on.
And the ropes aren't taking his weight, they're purely there as a safeguard.
It's pretty burly, this sort of climbing, isn't it? It's
Look at that.
very, very steep.
And at even that position, he's managing to,
Good
really
man.
dynamic.
Fantastic shot. that wasn't too difficult to move. However, he's tired, as Dave was.
Yes, you can see they're good. Oh,
Yes.
oh, what a beautiful hold.
It's the best hold in the world, man,
A
eh?
jug, we call that a jug, like the handle on a jug. Wonderful when you get them.
And of all the protection points in the climb, that is absolutely the oldest
Nice
one.
one, Dave.
Drop a
Sling.
piece of cord over a spike that sticks out and hope it's going to stay on there.
And they were doing that in the 1930s. But they weren't getting up routes like this.
Wow, what an amazing situation.
It's just unreal, isn't it?
So out there.
There are not many people could hang there and actually take some sort of perverse enjoyment of the space between your legs. It's quite an extraordinary thing.
Saturday afternoon at the crag.
Yep.
And after 5 hours, he's still got the stamina just to hang on one arm and relax.
This won't break off.
So straight back into reality, wondering whether the hold he's got will break. And the cliff is it's a sort of mountaineering kind of atmosphere where you've got loose rock, big runouts between gear. You're having to contend with the weather, keep warm, keep focused, and eat and fuel yourself throughout the days so that you continue having the strength to do these extraordinary moves.
But that's the joy of Scottish climbing. I live in the south of England and I don't get up here often enough. But you do have these wonderful big mountain crags, and every climb is a huge adventure.
There are lots of big cliffs in
Yeah, tell you what, the waterfall's not quite so far away now.
in Scotland, but
It's
there's
just like,
very few of them that
Maybe
are so
about
steep.
2 metres out now.
Tell you what, man, the last pitch is going to be epic.
It's going to be full on, yeah. I mean, it's not a waterfall, but it's like a really steady stream of drips coming down.
Yeah.
But it's kind of coming from more over that way. So where we are heading, I don't think there's any drips actually coming down it.
Yeah.
So it might be alright.
Tell you what, mate, there will be at some point.
Yeah. Well,
It's been raining all day.
it's really hard to tell. Is it actually raining just now or not? Not sure.
It's raining out
Still a little
here.
bit.
Small patches of blue sky beginning to appear. They were supposed to have appeared, according to the weather forecasts, at just about 2 o'clock this afternoon, but
I didn't
we've
jam
had
that actually.
had it full on all day.
Went through and got the next hole.
I think Scots are traditionally rubbish at hand jamming. Not enough granite cracks to practice on.
So you can see
That is the best hand jam
120
ever.
metres to the base of the climb,
You can have
and
cups of
nearly
tea and
500
cakes and
metres
all
down to our
sorts on that
commentary
one.
position. The
Give me a
land
little
below
tiny
the
edge.
the cliff
Crimp
drops
anything.
away,
You like
so
your
the sense of
crimps,
exposure
yeah.
when you leave the ground, it's huge.
Dizzy.
What was it, last week? We're in the Bugaboos and climbed 60 pitches of cracks just like this. And you
Yeah.
just cammering your hands in. That's why my hands are so bloody.
Tim spends part of the year living in Canada. That's where the bugaboos
Yeah, it's a
are.
bit of a long move there. She's coming up.
Yeah.
Ah, this is that big
Bit
reach.
of a move.
These guys are really enjoying themselves. It's
Nice.
it's nice to see people who are serious about the sport have such a fantastic time together. You know, there's a real bond developed over the weeks that they've been thinking about this, and it's terrific to see. It's absolutely terrific to see it.
There we go. Go on. Yeah.
To Cubby.
Almost there, man. Almost
Now
there.
we're going over to Cubby
So
Cuthbertson,
tiring.
Yeah, yeah.
one of Scotland's finest
I was
climbers,
tired
who's on the
about
safety
it.
team. Cubby, can you hear me?
Yes, hello Stephen.
Where are you watching from? I can't see where you are.
I'm about 150 feet down
Yeah.
from the very top
Right.
of the cliff. Only about 20 feet away from the action actually.
How did that pitch look from where you are?
Absolutely sensational, absolutely fantastic. And I can tell they're getting a little bit tired, but they're really pulling the stops out, and it's just an amazing position from where I am.
And what's it been like hanging on the ropes all day? Have you been out in the rain?
It's been very tough, I tell you. I mean, we've had constant rain and high winds buffeting us all day on the summit, and it's actually been it's made a pleasant change actually being down here, because I'm dry at the moment. But yeah, no, it's we've been listening on the radio mics on top, and it's been absolutely sensational without seeing them even. So it's been a real inspiration actually to see these two guys right at the top of their game, climbing so well. And I wished I was with them actually, to be quite honest.
I bet you do. I mean, you've been right at the top of your game. You're one of the great Scottish pioneers. Do you feel they've taken it to another level?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'd like to think I did my little bit, but they've taken it on to not just the next level, but the next level again, Stephen. So, and you know, in the true spirit of traditional Scottish climbing, you know, here we are on on one of the most remote cliffs in the Scottish Islands, and pushing the boat right out at the very highest level, as your commentators have been saying all along, and it's just superb to see.
While you're there, Cubby, we can see Keith Partridge. I think it's Keith, one of our finest mountain cameramen.
Yes.
No, it's not. Apparently it's Dave. I got it wrong. Anyway, we can see him there hanging in his little seat. You've been here all week rigging for this great event. How did you actually get those ropes in place?
Oh, I have to tell you, with a lot of difficulty. I mean, as you know, the cliff is so overhanging, but to a large extent, you know, Dave's progress here inspecting the cliff to find a line really helped us a lot, because he had a rope right down the cliff, and in the end, by utilising that rope, we could place the camera ropes in tandem to one side with I wouldn't say relative ease, but with some help at least. Yeah, that is Keith actually above me, by the way.
Oh, it is, right, yeah. But it's I mean, how do you get the ropes in? Because if you drop a rope, it's way out from the cliff.
Well,
how did he actually get them into the cliff to make contact?
Well, it's what we call back-aiding. You can only go, because the angle is about 1 and 2, it's sort of 45 degrees overhanging. You can only go down maybe 6 to 10 feet at one time, place some protection, clip your ropes in above, and carry on all the way down like that until you get to a stance, and repeat the process. So it's been very, very strenuous, I have to say. We've used an assortment of all sorts of climbing equipment, from the cams and nuts that Dave and Tim have been carrying to good old-fashioned pitons. So yeah, and eventually we ended up with the ropes that you see now. So it might look simple from a distance, but in actual fact, to get to this stage took a week of very, very strenuous work.
Thank you, Cubby. A fantastic piece of rigging, a technical triumph.